Lukis Mac, the founder of Awoken Breathwork. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to start working with Lukis Mac as a student. I had been going through a lot of things inside of my life that I needed to process. Trauma, unanswered questions, and I didn't know where to turn. I kept on seeing him working with Hollywood's exclusive. We're talking the Justin Biebers of the world. We're talking the Travis Barkers of the world. We're talking the Machine Gun Kellys of the world, and so many other individuals. And after crazy amounts of messages, I finally got a response. I did not expect what it was that I was going to experience. And over the last few years, I've dove deep and we've found a lot of answers to the questions that I've been looking for. And I hope that this conversation does the exact same thing for you. He's a founder, he's a friend, he's a leader. And this is Lukis Mac on the Space of Solace. Lukis Mac, my brother.
What's up, my bro? Thank you for letting me be here. Grateful.
I'm grateful to have you here, man. Genuinely.
Ready to dive deep.
I have been...
It's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it, man.
I've been so excited for this conversation because I travel the world, literally, and I talk about there are several people inside of my life that I consider a coach, I consider a mentor, but I'm very exclusive with those types of people. One of them being Ace Enders in regards to music and fatherhood. My pastor, Rich Wilkerson, in regards to my spirituality, marriage, and my relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And then getting high off of your own supply, Lukis Mac. And people are always asking me like, yo, what's this breathwork stuff that you do? I'm like, bro, if you could be a part of the conversations or the sessions that we've had. So I'm grateful to have you on this, man, genuinely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, I'm grateful to be here and I'm excited for this conversation. And my intention today is to inspire everyone that's listening. Let's just bring the heat, bring the vibes, and make sure that people get what they need out of it. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be a good one, especially since we just had a great conversation downstairs. We're just going to bring it up here now. So it's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
So you said bring the heat. We don't like to preheat the oven before sticking in the turkey round this way. There's always this starting question that we have, right? Here at the Space of Solace. And it is, what are you struggling with privately that you haven't gone public with?
Well, for me, it used to be negative self-talk. And I still struggle with negative self-talk, but I no longer let it stop me from moving forward and taking bold action on what I want. So for years growing up, for me, I really, really struggled with negative self-talk. Like I'm talking gnarly level. Like as a kid, 7 years old, looking in the mirror and hating myself, thinking that there was something wrong with me and just tearing myself to shreds every single day. Wow. And bro, what kind of self-concept does that, create? So for me, it created a self-concept that was very much lacking. Had low self-esteem, didn't believe in myself, didn't feel good enough, didn't feel worthy. And that just kept on compounding. And that's what I struggled with. And that led to holding myself back and playing small in so many ways. So, that's been a big part of my work today. So now when negative self-talk comes up, I just don't feed it. It's there, but I just don't give it my energy and attention like I used to because I've learned not to. I feed something that's more empowering. I feed my connection to my spirit and my connection to God. And, I empower that and let that lead my life. So that's what it's been for me.
How has the negative self-talk changed from when you were that 7-year-old looking at yourself in the mirror to being an individual that is world-renowned and you're a public figure now and you've helped people in so many different walks of life? How has that self-talk changed?
Well, it used to be all consuming, like it had power over me, and now it doesn't have power over me. So that's the difference. So it can be there in the background, but it no longer influences the way that I show up, where before it used to influence every single moment of my life. It used to really have power over me. But now it's when it comes up, which it does, there's still parts of me that as I'm stretching myself to do more and be more in this world, parts of me that still don't feel good enough or feel like I might not be worthy of accomplishing everything I want. I come up against that, but I don't give it my attention and energy and I don't let fear stop me. Where before fear would be, a big catalyst or a big reason why I wouldn't be showing up and doing the things that I wanted to do. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of getting it wrong, even fear of success. So that's what it was back then. And now that can be there, but I'm like, let's go. Sheesh. We got this.
I got one for you, Lukis, because I want to stay right there with the negative self-talk. So I've also experienced that. I'm sure we all have. What was that routine like that you started when you finally realized, like, I can't continue to live my life like this, talking to myself like this, destroying myself like this? when you make that shift that you were going to go from thinking negative to start working on thinking positive and recreating that version of yourself, what were the routines like? What were you doing in the daytime, the morning, the night times? Kind of walk me through that. I would love to know how that worked for you.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. It wasn't like a quick, easy process. I had to rewire my brain and my nervous system, and it didn't happen for me overnight. Like when I first started practicing, like even positive self-talk, I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I could say something, but I didn't feel it. It wasn't embodied. I wasn't believing it. So I could tell myself that I'm good enough or I'm worthy or I'm going to accomplish these things, but I hadn't proved it to myself yet. I didn't have the evidence to back that up. So it was just a mental concept and I didn't believe it. But I still practiced those things. One of the things I started doing was, even though I didn't believe positive self-talk, I would use the practice of trying it on, just letting it in. So what would it be like if I did believe in myself? Like, how does that version of me act? How does that version of me respond? How does that version of me show up? And I just contemplate that, and then I'll just try it on. I'd let it in a little bit, just a little bit. And there were still parts of me that didn't fully believe it, but I was learning to like let it in, to let in more light, to let in more love, to let in more belief. And there was a big part of me that was resistant to it. But over time, I just backed it up with a lot of action and I proved it to myself. And through that process, I began to rewire my brain and my nervous system. And, there's a part of the brain called the RES, the reticular activating system. And you all know this, right?
Yeah.
And it looks for evidence to back up what we believe. And it's a filtering system.
It's a filtering system, exactly.
Yeah, if I believe I'm not good enough, then I'm going to find all the evidence of why I'm not good enough. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I started to find out these things. And then I started to, really practice interrupting those negative thought loops. And when I'd interrupt them, like meaning I'd catch them in the moment, there's another thought, I'm not good enough. I'd question it. Is this really true? How can I know this is true? And then I'd start to find evidence of why it's not true, of why I am good enough, of how I am supported, of how I am worthy. And then I'd use that evidence to prove it to myself that I can do it. And I'd amplify my self-talk and I'd speak life into myself because, if we're using negative self-talk, that drains our energy and it disconnects us from our true authentic power. So I recognized that I was draining my own energy and I was living in states of survival and I wasn't using my energy for creation. I was using my energy to stay stuck in survival, and I recognized that. I just didn't have the tools to interrupt it and change it. But I learned how to do that over time. So I would interrupt the pattern and then I'd choose again and I'd put in reps. And that's what it means to put in reps. You choose the more empowering belief. You choose the more empowering story. You override the negative, disempowering story that's not actually based in truth. It's based on your conditioning of where you came from and who you learned to be and who you were told to be and what the world told you could do or you can't do. So I was like, no, that's not going to define me anymore. Yes, I've been through all of these different things, but that doesn't have to define where I'm going. And every time that old disempowering story came up, I would interrupt it. I would choose again, a new empowering story is what I would choose. And then I'd put in those reps, baby.
You was putting in those reps
and
every day.
over time,
So
those
powerful.
reps, became a part of me proving it to myself. Obviously, you have to back it up with action and you have to go all in on your vision, but that's what it was. Yeah.
Great answer.
During the seasons of my life where I caught myself, because negative self-talk, I don't think it ever...
It never stops.
It never stops, especially if you have an appetite for growth and an appetite for progression inside of your life in any area. It's just never going to stop. And most of the times we wouldn't talk to ourselves. We wouldn't talk to enemies the way it is that we talk to ourselves. Yeah. We wouldn't talk to people we don't with the way it is that we talk to ourselves. You talk about putting in these reps. There's a lot of wisdom behind what it is that you've said right now. And I know that comes from years of experience, but was it self-taught? Where did it come from? Who did you learn this from? What sparked that? Because I know this type of information isn't just something that's just like readily taught in schools or at our dinner tables and stuff like that. So what was the spark? Was it self-taught, or did you have a mentor? Did you have somebody that you studied?
No, it was 10 years of inner work. So it came from all different holistic modalities, but basically it was developing my pattern recognition and awareness of self. So as I became more and more aware of myself and my own patterns, then I could start to shine light on anything that was disempowering or limiting in nature or fear-based, or ultimately that wasn't serving me. So the more aware I became of myself through all the inner work, through all the years of different therapies and modalities, with awareness comes choice. So that's what it was. I was able to interrupt those old patterns and just keep choosing again and create a new story. And I think each and every single one of us has the power to create a new story. Because whatever you've been through in your life, it doesn't have to define you. Most of us have been through trauma and all kinds of things that could hold us back, that could limit us if we choose that. But it is a choice, a choice to move beyond that, a choice to heal your relationship with the past, a choice to choose what you truly want and to own it and to go after it and not let your own fears and limitations hold you back. But you have to be willing to face off with yourself and the parts of you that are trying to keep you small, because there will be real parts of you that try and keep you small when you go after what you want, When you prioritize your dreams and you make them a reality, there's going to be parts of you through every step of the way that will be in resistance, will try to hold you back through the voice of fear. And one of the things I started to recognize within myself is that my survival programming, which is, how our brain and our nervous systems and our bodies respond to stress, which is based on how we grew up and our coping mechanisms and just how we learn to deal with stress. I recognize that my survival programming used fear as a strategy to keep me in my known familiar reality, to keep me in my comfort zone. So every time I would stretch beyond my comfort zone and I'd try and do something big, like I'd have a bold goal, something really big, and I'd go to take action on it, I'd notice that the voice of fear would come up, and it would usually come up through worst case scenarios. Like my mind would go into worst case scenarios. And I started to peep that and look at that. And then I was like, okay, this is my survival programming trying to keep me safe. It's trying to keep me small. It's trying to keep me from going after what I want because of all kinds of reasons, right? Fear of failure and rejection and not getting it right, and even fear of success. What does it mean to be successful? So there was all of that. And I was just tracking it and becoming more aware of it over time through the inner work. And then I just became really good at interrupting it and not feeding the fear. And what I mean by not feeding fear is fear will be there, because fear is a part of your survival programming. So it will be there, it will come up. But it's more about you noticing when it's there and not giving it so much energy, not giving it so much attention, not giving it so much power. And that's what I would practice. I would practice returning my power to myself and ultimately my connection to my higher self and to God. And I'd use that to reinforce what's good in my life, how I am supported, how I am worthy. And then I'd find real life evidence to back it up and then take action from there. And that's what ultimately helped me.
What's interesting? The most successful individuals that I know and I sit down with, they all have this love-hate relationship on how to utilize fear. And I heard something about fear. Fear, there's two types of fears that we're born with. The first type of fear is the fear of falling, and the second type is the fear of loud noises. So when you're at work or you're at school and you fall asleep and you do the jump, right? Or like my son could hear something loud. He doesn't know if somebody's coming into the house to harm us or if it was a box that fell. It's the same type of fear for him. But it's safe to say we have so many other fears, whether it's spiders, heights, public speaking, ambition, whatever the case may be, ending up like people that we love that we don't want to end up like, whatever the case may be, which means that you have learned all those fears. Those fears have been conditioned. And I realized that, from 50 Cent and the 50th Law, right, with Robert Greene.
Great book.
Yeah, phenomenal book. He's talking about fear throughout the entire book and how it is that he's utilized fear to his advantage. I think that's something that a lot of people, all of us have it in common. We're scared of this. And some of us are conscious of what it is that we're scared of. Some of us have no idea what it is that we're scared of. We just feel the sense of fear at all times that leads to anxiety and so many different feelings. Where did you, what practice would you give somebody that is like, all right, cool, I want to turn this fear into a superpower, man, because essentially that's what it is that all these successful people have in common.
Yeah, well, you already know for what it is for me. It's breathwork. So instead of running from your fear or avoiding it, which most people do, right? They'll try and numb it or escape it or, reach for some coping mechanism to get away from it. What I recognized is that when we feel that anxiety or that sense of fear, most people will want to avoid it because it's an uncomfortable feeling. So they'll seek to reach for something outside of themselves to find a temporary sense of relief from what they're feeling on the inside. And that could be anything, right? That could be scrolling on your phone. That could be drinking. That could be smoking. That could be pornography. That could be anything that you use to find a temporary sense of relief and pleasure, because anxiety and fear doesn't feel good at all, right? None of us want to feel that. So we try to escape it. We try to run away from it. We try to mask it. We try to avoid it. But that means it has power over you because you're not looking at it. So one of the things I'd do is I'd take a fear and I'd play it all the way to the end. What is the worst case scenario? And I'd take it all the way to the end. And can I be okay with that worst case scenario? Like fully look at it and face it. And then I'd take it into my breathwork practice and I'd regulate my nervous system and I'd find that sense of anxiety. Where do I feel it in my body? Where do I feel this sense of anxiety in my body? And I'd find it and I'd feel it and I'd process it and I'd move through it, because there's a lot of power in moving through your pain. And a lot of us avoid our pain and we try to escape from it, but that means it has power over us. So the way to take your power back is to face it head on and not run from it and go through it. And when you go through it, you can find a lot of power in it. And ultimately from there, it doesn't control you and it doesn't stop you and it doesn't limit you from moving forward. So that's what it's been for me. I'd bring it into my breathwork practice and I'd somatically track where it was in my body, and then I'd go through all the way through it.
I love that. And you know, I want to stay with that topic right there, because I was watching a Will Smith interview one time, and in the interview, he was going through the process of what he was thinking about before he skydived in Dubai, and the fear that he was creating in his mind, and the worst case scenario, what if I die, my family, etc. But he said this quote, and he said that the best things in life are on the other side of fear. That once he jumped, it was such a blissful experience, and that sometimes we create these fears in our mind, but on the other side of it is so much beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about like what you've been able to accomplish when you face those fears and what you were able to learn from those lessons as well?
Yeah, you start to unlock everything that you truly desire in this reality, because when fear's no longer holding you back, then you're free to go after whatever it is that you want. So for me, I started to recognize that, like you said, there was this thinking feeling loop that was happening. Like the more I thought about fear from a disempowering way, like it had power over me, then that would generate negative feelings in my body, or uncomfortable feelings like anxiety, like you talked about. And then I recognized the more I thought about this, the more anxious I felt. And the more anxious I felt, the less I wanted to do it, right? So it was like holding me back. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna be with this anxiety and I'm gonna play the worst case scenario all the way to the end, and I'm gonna track how I feel. And then I'm gonna accept that. I'm gonna find acceptance with that. Can I accept that if this is the worst case scenario, will I be okay with that? Can I be okay with that? And I'd find acceptance with it. And then from there, I'd go out there and I'd take bold action. And what happened to me through that process is I was able to start to prove to myself what I wanted was truly possible. And when I started to see results, like doors were open, opportunities were coming, synchronicity was happening, then I would get into a flow state with it. Yeah. Because fear blocks your connection to your own life force. Fear will block a flow state. And in order to really unlock greatness, you have to be in a flow state. And when you're living in a flow state, then you're present. You're in the present moment. You feel connected to God. You feel unstoppable. You feel like what you want to create is possible because you know it's possible. And in that state, you're connected to your intuition. You're connected to your inner knowing, and you know what to do. You have clarity, and then you can take action, and taking action from that level then creates momentum, and then you start to unlock new levels. So that's what it was for me. I started to unlock new levels, and I started to prove to myself what I wanted was possible, and then it just all started unlocking. But it was on the other side of fear, just like you mentioned. Side, and I had to be willing to embrace that fear, not run away from it, but move through it, go past it, go beyond it, not let it control me. Because it will try and have control over you.
So powerful.
And usually that's a sensation. It can be a sensation of, like you said, feeling anxious. And if you try to avoid feeling anxious, then it has more power over you. So you have to find your power with however you're feeling, which takes acceptance. Like, can I accept that I feel anxious? Yes. I can accept that right now I feel anxious. I can be with this feeling of anxiousness. I can be with it. If I can be with it, then it doesn't have power over me anymore. I can release it. I can let it go. And then I can return back to my power. So that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, Tony always says that anxiety is a moment, not something that we own. It's a place that we visit.
Exactly.
And I've always taken that, like, when I'm experiencing a moment, I'm like, yo, I'm just experiencing this. This isn't mine. I'm gonna take it for what it is, and I'm gonna release it back into the ether and let it do its thing. When I reached out to you, bro, I was scared of this. Like, I was terrified. And it's interesting because when I reached out to you, I was monetarily doing the best that I've ever done in my life. Top of the food chain in a lot of different areas.
I remember. What year was that? That was 23?
Dude, nah. It, like, right after COVID, I started working with you.
22, yeah.
Yeah, literally right after COVID. And, bro, I had, like, this crazy identity crisis. And it's interesting because you talk about anxiety as, like, it's just like a shadow on the wall for you now. But for other people, it's like this monster inside of the room that controls everything.
I relate to that. I used to have crippling anxiety, panic attacks, all of that. So I totally get it.
Dude, it was wild. I remember I was so desperate. I was so desperate, bro. I was willing to try whatever, man. I just didn't want to, like, take medications for depression or anxiety or any of that. But I was willing to try whatever, bro. And I kept on, like, I'm an artist and I'm heavily inside of the music space, involved in the music space. So, like, I'm looking at MGK and he's working with you. And then I'm seeing, like, Travis Barker and he's working with you. And, you know, so many different artists. But then even outside of artists, people like Jake Paul and his fighting career. And I was like, bro, this guy's helping high performers break through. Like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get in contact with them. And if you scroll up, like, I hit you up a bunch of times and then finally it worked out. You were in Miami. You were like, yeah, dude, I'll pull up. Let's do it. And what you showed me that first time, and then from sessions beyond, is something that, like, literally I install in my kids. My daughter, she's
That's cool.
3 now. And when she's like, and she's so spicy, but when she's turning up, we always take a moment. It's like, all right, let's take some breaths, right? Why do you feel what you've built has become such a hot commodity among so many high performers, where they have access to medicine, they have access to the world, right? And they're seeking you out. So many politicians, I mean, huge names inside of Hollywood that you've been able to help process traumatic experiences. Like, the story of where my head always goes is the story of Travis, man. Like, what you helped him process, being able to go out there and see him absolutely crush it right now is so beautiful. Why do you think this breath work has become such a hot commodity inside of the space that you're in right now?
Yeah,
I know what it did for me, man.
Yeah, no, I think because it returns the power back to the person. So it's not me healing you. It's not me working on you. Yes, it's a collaboration. Like, you know, we're working together, but ultimately you're doing the work on yourself. You're accessing what you're accessing from within. You're understanding yourself. You're releasing and letting go of what you're letting go of. You know, you're processing your emotions. You're working through trauma. You're opening up your connection to God. It's all coming through you. I'm just there with you in the space, and we're just collaborating together on it. So it's a really empowering way to work. And I think that's why. And it's quick, it's efficient, it gets the job done, and it's a direct experience of transformation and healing. So you can be skeptical, you can not believe in it, you don't need to believe in it, because the experience is going to be what it's going to be, and you're going to have that experience. Just like if you were taking plant medicine, right? You can be skeptical, but you're going to have some sort of experience. So, you know, breathwork is the same. The type of breathwork that we teach, we're guiding people into a non-ordinary state of consciousness so they can connect more with themselves, more with their subconscious mind. They can regulate their nervous system. They can process emotions. They can let things go. So it happens pretty quickly in the space. And yeah, it can be really profound and life-changing for people who are ready to go there. And not everyone's ready, but if you are ready, then yeah, it's a powerful way to just do that inner work and get what you need from it, and then ultimately come out more empowered. So
can you explain, you remember that one time, it was my record release show. I was doing a show out in Arizona, and we were doing a virtual session, and the color purple, and wrapping myself inside of a certain color. And you had me first, and it was so crazy because I saw the venue. I never told you this, but I saw the venue when we were doing our practice almost identical to the actual venue we were playing. And I didn't even know what that venue looked like, which was a trip in itself. And I remember seeing my wife to the left holding my daughter. She ended up being on the left of the stage holding my daughter, sure enough, which was a crazy experience.
I remember that event.
You had asked me, like, after we did a visualization, it was so in depth, man. Like, that one, you had me walking through different doors with my inner child. And man, I get choked up even thinking about it now. Such a beautiful experience. And then at the very end of it, you asked me, you said, what color do you see right now and what color do you feel? And it was the color purple. And now whenever I'm feeling the sense of helplessness, I always go back to that moment. That exact moment. I've learned to harness it. There's two moments. One I've experienced in the physical and one I've experienced inside of the spiritual, inside of my mind, right? Can you explain how to harness that feeling for people? Because that's a superpower, bro. Like, when they're going through their shit, it could be used for traffic, but it could also be used for the mourning of someone that you love, right? And that was a huge thing for me, bro, that I carry with me on a day-to-day now.
That's
so
cool.
powerful.
That's dope. Yeah, you have to be willing to go in and face off with yourself, you know, because most people are in states of resistance, or they're avoiding that work basically because it's uncomfortable. It's real, right? So you have to be willing to get real with yourself and face off with yourself. That means feeling anything that's uncomfortable, anything that's had power over you, anything that might cause you to feel fearful or anxious or overwhelmed or disconnected from your power. So it starts with that, the willingness to go within and the willingness to feel. And, you know, on the other side of that, you can connect to your power. But there's a lot of different techniques that we use. What you're speaking into is like mental rehearsal, where you're mentally rehearsing, you know, what you want to create, what you're stepping into from the perspective that it's already been created, you know, and your brain and your body doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined, especially when you're adding in really powerful, potent emotions, right? So if you can connect to what you want and you know what you want and you know why you want it, and that means you can connect to the desired feelings. Like, when you create what you want, then you're going to feel however you're going to feel. Name it. I'm going to feel elevated. I'm going to feel important. I'm going to feel like people respect me. Whatever it is, you don't have to wait till you manifest what you want to feel those emotions. You can practice them now. You can try them on now. And you can do that through mental rehearsal. And that's what it means to embody those states. So by the time that you actually manifest and create what you want, you are embodied, you're calibrated, your beliefs and your nervous system are in alignment with it. So it doesn't feel like it's too much, you know. You're not going to self-sabotage. You're not going to, you know, it all up basically, because you feel calibrated to that and you feel like you deserve it. So that's what it means to, you know, mentally rehearse and give yourself permission to play around with, like, yeah, just really seeing it and feeling it and knowing it from the perspective that you've created it. And that's working with your subtle senses and your intuition. And we're all intuitive, just most of us don't know the language of our own intuition. Like, you know, one way our intuition speaks to us is through knowing. But when people, and that's called clear cognizance. And if someone doesn't know that that's how your intuition speaks to you, then you just might dismiss it because it's a knowing. You know something. So for you, if you have that, it's innate. And you just might override it, like it seems so simple to you, but other people don't have that. So it's important to understand, you know, the language of your own intuition, and because that's how God speaks to you. And if you know that, then you can use that in your practices when you're mentally rehearsing what you want. And you can tap into your intuition and you can listen to your inner voice and your subtle senses and work with your imagination as well and just play around with it and condition your mind and body to it. And when you pair that with taking bold action and you're consistent, then reality catches up. And before you know it, you're living in your dream. And we can all be a testament to that.
100%.
I have a question to you. There's always this question that I get, right? I'm a strong believer in Jesus Christ. I'm a Christian man. And when I tell people that I dive into breathwork and I dive into my trauma and I'm connected to my inner child, and I'm healing that inner child, and that inner child's healing me right now. There's always the question of, oh, well, isn't that new age, right? And in the beginning, when I first started working with you, I was really big on my discernment and like, okay, let me see what it is that I'm feeling. Like, Lukis seems like a cool dude, but like, I don't know him. He doesn't know me. We're about to step into some spiritual together. Like, am I safe, bro? Am I good? And one of the things that anchored me from the very beginning was everything was surrounded around God. And that for me was a huge thing. And it was me stepping into, I remember specifically the session that I was just talking about, where it was like I remember feeling that if I don't go and rip this show and give it everything that I have, it is a disrespect to God and the purpose that he has on my life and what it is that he's allowed me to do and the door that he's opened for me. And if I don't walk through that with a certain level of authority and a certain level of boldness, then that is a disrespect towards my creator. And I think that so many people step away from the power of breath work because of their ideologies or their religions and things along those lines, not understanding that like, yo, this is, God gave us this. He allowed us to get high off of our own supply. And this is an ancient practice. So like, how do you help somebody? Because I was able to bring the two together through a practice with you.
Yeah.
Then it was like, okay, but I don't know how to explain that, right? I just felt it.
Yeah, no, I work with people from all different walks of life, from all different religions, all different cultures, all different backgrounds. And it's all about you tapping in with your own connection to your own spiritual beliefs, whatever that is, whatever, whether that's religious or spiritual, wherever you come from, whatever you believe in, you're going to access more of that because it's coming through you. It's not coming through me. Yeah. It's coming through you. So whatever you believe in, you're going to access that and you're going to get more of that. And ultimately, it's your connection to God. And that's going to flow through every cell in your being. And before you know it, you're going to recognize that you are connected. And this is a direct connection. And it's not coming through the facilitator, it's coming through you. And that connection is always available to you. But most of us are living in states of survival. And when we're living in a state of survival, we feel separate from creation. And that's where most of us are operating. But God is all around us and within us. So when you go within and you give yourself permission to go within, you move beyond a state of survival, you open up your connection to something so much greater than yourself. So that's the work. And when you're living in a state of separation and stress and survival, where most people are operating, then it limits you. Because you're using a lot of your energy and your life force to stay in those states of survival, which is small and it's limiting. You're focusing basically on small problems. It's very service to self. And like you said, it's a disrespect to my creator for me to not have walk with authority and faith and belief and my ability to show up, enter into the space and give this performance all that I've got, right? And that's what it is. It's like connection to your spiritual connection that comes through you. And then you walk with faith and belief and conviction and your ability to rise into the moment and to do your best, whatever you've got. And you know that you don't walk in there alone. You know that you walk in there with God, however you define that for you. And that's up to the individual to define that. It's not for me to tell anyone, what they should believe in. But whatever you believe in, we're going to connect to more of that and open up more connection with that. So you can really, free yourself from whatever you need to.
And I very much felt that.
Yeah,
I very, very much felt that during the session. You talk about this practice means so much to you. This is the greater part of your life. Everything is towards this practice and impacting lives and spreading this message, whether it's 200-300 people inside of a room, or whether it's podcasts like this, or whether it's one-on-one consultations and helping people process things, fight camps with Jake, like the list goes on, right? So this is your baby. This is something you've created. And it's in essence like it's art, bro, genuinely what it is that you've created.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you're monetizing it, which is this weird, like with my music, there's I'm one of the most annoying things about music is having to create content for music. Like I put so much energy into this music, but it's the game and it is what it is, right? That it's the game that you got to play and either play it or get played. But there's always this weird, like, I feel like I'm slutting out my baby, right? Like this is my art. This is a form of expression. I had to go through a lot in order to develop this, right? Where do you find that balance where you're like, all right, cool, I'm going to become wildly successful? Because even in the last few years that I've known you, dog, you're killing it.
Thank you.
Right? You're killing it, man.
You.
All over the world.
How do you balance that where you're like, yeah, I want to keep it pure. I want to keep these practices something that is legacy driven, but at the same time, like I make no apology for becoming extremely successful with this.
Yeah, that's my spiritual connection. And I always wanted to be a boss. and I'm an entrepreneur, and that's where I'm at. Like, I've always had that within me. I've always wanted to be my own boss. I've always wanted to be financially successful. We didn't come from money, we struggled growing up. So I always wanted to get out of that cycle, and I wanted to be able to put my family on and like show up for my loved ones and create a better life for everyone around me. So there's always been that drive. There's always been that hustle there. And then you pair that with, being soul-led and being deeply connected to your faith. And then it's just a no-brainer. Of course I'm going to show up. And it's exactly what you said. Of course I'm going to show up to the best of my ability. Of course I'm going to show up and give it this my all, because this is what my soul came here to do, And that's what it is. And when it comes to like the money side of things, then I have no problem with receiving, because I give so much. And a lot of the work I do, it's not even paid. I don't even get anything in return, because I'm gifting a lot of work out there. So if someone can't afford it, it doesn't mean that they can't get the work, because, we've trained hundreds of facilitators all around the world. There's always help out there. There's always resources. There's always someone, that can lend a hand and help people out. But, we're here to go to the top, and we make no apology for that, because we know what we're here to do, and we're here to shift culture, and we're here to normalize inner work and, make it cool to transform your life and heal yourself from the inside out. So that's what I came to be a part of. And I'm not the only one. It's not like I'm saying, yeah, I'm going to shift culture. No, I'm one of many. I'm one of thousands. We're here in a room. We're all here to do our part, and to, there's a resurgence right now, a spiritual resurgence of God, and you can feel it and you can see it everywhere, because that's why we came here. We came here to make a difference, and we came here to show people what's up, and we came here to empower people, and we came here to free people from their own suffering and limitation. And that's the path that we're all on. And there's been many people that have done that before us, and, we're the new wave. And that's what we're here to do. and it's a blessing.
And no apologies for it, man.
No, hell no.
Absolutely.
You just hyped me up right there,
Let's
bro.
go.
I love that, man. That was so powerful to even feel that energy. You were talking about growing up, and how,
dude, exactly where I wanted to go.
Yeah, so
I'm so glad
we're in alignment. You were talking about growing up, and I know you grew up in New Zealand. Talked about you didn't come from much. You had to hustle for yours, etc. What were some moments growing up that shaped you into the man that you are today? Like, what was it some of the things that you experienced growing up, that some of those lessons that you learned very early on that have helped you become the man that you are today? I would love to hear some of those stories.
Yeah. Well, first, shout out to my mum, because mum always believed in me.
Shout out to Mama Dukes.
Mum always told me that, whatever I wanted to do was possible. She was always there loving and supporting me. Dad was a wild boy. So, when I was 7 years old, my dad took his life. He shot himself. And that was like a pivotal moment in my journey, where things went like hugely spiraling down for me, because I just felt so unsupported and lost and abandoned.
At what age, if you don't mind me asking?
7 years old. Yeah. So when that happened, it was like years of depression and anxiety kicked in. And, mum was there loving me and supporting me, but it's like I was just going through it. And I was my own version of dad. I was my own wild boy. So, I had to walk that path and figure things out. But yeah, growing up in New Zealand was both beautiful and also really challenging. In New Zealand, I had a really good group of friends, but we were all wild boys. Most of us came from broken homes. We didn't have fathers. A lot of my friends either ended up in jail or in gangs, and they're my brothers and I love them, but we just took different paths. I chose to take this path and they chose to take other paths, and I still love them. We're still in contact, but that's just what it was like for me growing up from where I was from, and that was normal. So that was the path that I was on for a very long time, but that was a self-destructive path that was taking me down a road of either basically prison or death, and that's where I was heading. And at a certain point in time, I realized I was exactly where my father was. And I guess one of the big things that stopped me from taking my life was I didn't want to do that to my mum. Yeah. And, that was it, really. That was my only reason. So I chose to figure it out. And I didn't know what figuring it out would be, didn't know what that meant. But I just knew that I needed to make many, many changes. And I started making those changes. And that's what I mean about doing 10 years of deep inner work. It wasn't one thing. It was working with many different people and modalities and practitioners, and which eventually led me to find breathwork. And when I found breathwork, it was crazy because I didn't even want to do it. I was resistant to it. Like my wife, Hella, she was like, no, we need to go do this. So I just was like, hey, we'll go do it, but I don't want to. I'm doing it for you. And had this really crazy, wild experience in it where I didn't even know going into it that I was going to feel my emotions like I did. I truly didn't. I didn't expect that. And in this session, I ended up connecting with my dad and forgiving my dad. And I didn't even know that I needed to forgive my dad. Like, truly, that wasn't even in my awareness or on my mind.
What age was this?
This was 15 years ago now. So yeah, we were living in Bali in Indonesia, and it was a really cool time in my life because I had done a lot of inner work. But that somatic piece, the body, right, where I'd done a lot of work on my beliefs and my mindset, but my body was still holding on to a lot of trauma. So that's what I didn't really recognize. And when I went into that session, it was crazy. Yeah, I just felt my dad's presence, and I cried and cried and cried and cried. And my dad said, "You are good enough as you are, my son." And I felt his love for the first time in a very long time. And I forgave him for his choice to leave this planet. And yeah, it was really emotional and really deep. And I came out of that experience and I was like, what was that? Like, that was insane. And then I just knew that I needed to study that, and I needed to understand it, and I needed to know the science, and I needed to figure out what that experience was so I could articulate it, so I could dive into it, and then I could share it with people. Yeah, and that's what I did. You know, from there I spent years figuring it out and studying it and doing different certifications. And then eventually we created our company called Awaken, and we ended up traveling all around the world with that and supporting people, and we haven't stopped. So yeah.
Matt, I want to come to you real quick because I know that relates with you a lot as well.
Dude, I was just thinking right now, he's talking about his first experience, but you put me through my first experience, and that was so...
I wanted to ask you about that because, you know, I know you lost your dad at a very young age, 2 years old. And was that one of the things that you also had to heal when you did your breath work with Lukis as well? Was that one of the things that you had to kind of go through as well?
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Did you have a similar experience like him? Like where, son, you're good. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Like, damn, dope,
Lukis helped me process. Actually, I think it was my second session with him. My first session was with my wife, which was a very vulnerable moment. Man, I didn't know what I was stepping into. I wouldn't have chose to do that with my wife the first time because it was like standing naked and staring at each other, bro. It was so twisted, bro. I've never experienced something like that. But like staring and just like talking about your flaws. Like, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. It was so healthy for us. But the second time I did it was with my best friends, Matt and Ronnie. And we were all inside of a living room, and I really processed that one specifically, the passing of my dad, and having to feel like I had an identity crisis, and I felt like I had to become somebody I didn't even really know. And that was one of the most uncertain things of my life that I didn't know I was carrying. And you definitely helped me process that. And then also, I remember I threw up, I think it was that session, I threw up just a bunch of phlegm from like how much I was holding on. You were talking about where do you feel it? For me, it was in the throat. And I didn't realize it affected me having that identity crisis. It affected, you know, the relationships that I was building, the marriage that I was in, the father that I would eventually become, the friend that I was, the brother that I was. It was affecting so many different things. So as you spoke about that, like, you literally helped me process so many of those things.
It's wild growing up without a father because you've got no one to show you the way. And then you've got to figure it out. Like, you've got to go be initiated from a boy into a man with no guidance, no discipline, no structure, no one to show you the way. It's insane. Like, that journey for me has been the most painful, but also the most like amazing, beautiful journey to figure that out. It's wild.
Let me ask you a question then. So, for example, me, I've had my father my whole life. I've been alive for 31 years, and I'm very fortunate. What do you feel like is the difference of the upbringing between someone like you guys that grew up with no dad and someone like me? Like, what are the benefits that I get by growing up with my dad, but what are also some of the disadvantages that come with that? Have you seen some differences working with different people all around the world?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest differences I've seen with someone who grows up like in a secure relationship with your father, yeah, you have that love that's always there, it's always present, and there can be like discipline and masculine structure and consistency, and they can show you the way forward, and it's not necessarily in what they tell you, but just in their actions. We learn from how people are behaving. So you witness all of that. You have them consistent in your life, and when you don't have that, there can be this deep hole that you're trying to fill, because you feel it. You feel like something's missing. You don't know what it's like to have a father, and you look around and you see people, when you're a kid anyway, you see people that have fathers, and you don't know what that's like, but you feel like a sense of it's missing and this deep disconnection from that. And with that comes a lot of sadness and a lot of pain and a lot of grief. And then you don't know how to even be with those feelings as well. And you've got no one to like support you with that, So yeah, it's challenging for sure. Like, shout out to anyone out there that grew up without a father, because it's painful. And if you've had to, grow yourself into a man, then big love to you, because that's not an easy journey, So, but yeah, what about from your perspective? What was it like for you? Because you only know what you know, but
Exactly.
For you growing up with your father, what has he instilled in you through his behavior or just what he showed you?
Dano's dad is the man.
Yeah, my dad is the man, and you hit it on the head when you said discipline and consistency. My dad has been a taxi driver for 50 years of his life. Rain or shine, Monday through Sunday, he wakes up at 5 in the morning. He's out of the house by 6, and he works from 6 to 4 every day. Lucas, I can almost promise you there's 365 days. He probably works 350 of those every single year without miss. And a lot of people always ask me, where do you get your consistency from? Where do you get your discipline from? And a lot of the times my answer is my dad. Growing up subconsciously, watching him wake up every single day and go to work and not make an excuse. And every day he would always leave me money on the table. Like, there was never a time that I didn't wake up and that money wasn't on the table. Every morning I had, and it's funny because as I got older, the money increased. It started with $3, then $5, then $10, then it was $20 when I was in high school. So every day, but it was just that consistency. And now in business and life and just in general, that those things are installed in me subconsciously. Like, I don't know anything else. So I'm actually very grateful for my dad. Like, if it wasn't for my dad teaching me that, it has helped me so much in business and life and just everything that I'm doing today. So I'm actually very grateful for my dad. But I just see how different it is. And going back to the pain, I feel like a lot of successful people that I see, though, that grew up without a dad, they're able to use that pain and turn it into purpose, though.
Yeah, you can transform it into purpose 100%. Well, you either go one way or the other, right? A lot of people use it to self-destruct, and then they fall into like addiction and different things like that, and just go down that path. Or you turn it into purpose.
Exactly.
So you can. It's how you harness it and how you work with it, and ultimately, if you're willing to grow through it.
Yeah, shout out
challenging.
To Dad.
Yeah. But that consistency piece and the discipline is huge, because I didn't grow up with that. So for me, I lacked discipline, and I lacked consistency, and I lacked structure. So that doesn't lead to success.
Everything I started.
Yeah.
When I hear that, I was like, I was missing those in my household as well. And it's interesting now being a dad, because there was no example of how to be a father. So for me, it's such a trippy experience now that I'm leading these little humans for the rest of their lives. And it's just based off of instinct. Fortunately, I do have examples of like other really cool dads out there. You feel me? Some of my homies.
You're doing a great job, though, bro. I see you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
What do you think the number one challenge is for like new fathers out there? That maybe let's say they didn't grow up with a father.
Yeah.
And now they're a father themselves.
Yeah.
And they're just having to figure it out.
Few things come to mind, honestly. The first thing is it's so easy to not do it. It's being a dad is hard, man. It's a decision that you make every day. No one cares about whether or not you're tired from work. No one cares whether or not you're anxious. No one cares if you're depressed. No, you just got to show up. You got to protect and you got to provide, man. Yeah. And providing doesn't just mean from a financial perspective. You got to provide that security for them. You got to provide that safe space for them from a internal perspective, and then from a home perspective as well. Another thing is a lot of guys are out here having babies with women that they don't genuinely foresee themselves with for the rest of their lives. And forcing yourself into a relationship, like, it happens, bro, I get it. And then you're inside of a position where you're forcing yourself inside of a relationship, and it causes all this just tension inside of the household, and your child's growing up with that. And on top of that, like, yo, we're all still young. Like, I'm only 33 years old. So like, we're experiencing that at like, we're in an interesting place in our 30s, right? Like, we're it feels like kind of like we're so close to being young, and we still feel so young, and we still like feel like we're experiencing life, but then we also feel like, yo, we have our routines and our morals and our standards and what it is that we're cemented in as well. And you lose your identity inside of a household like that. And fortunately, I never had to experience that personally from a firsthand, but I've experienced it so much from a third party. Another thing is, and I feel that a lot of people, men specifically, having young children, they're scared in order to do so because of the financial perspective. And things are getting more intense inside of our economy.
That's what I see with a lot of men, like just carrying that burden, that weight of responsibility, of that financial pressure. See a lot of men going through that.
It's why most divorces happen. It's the lack of finances inside of a household.
So much stress and tension, like you said, that caused, and then that's all brought into the household. And like, men are just trying to do their best, but it's like, it's challenging.
It's hard, man. I will say having a baby's not as expensive as I thought it was going to be. Childcare, I could see where it becomes an issue. Like, childcare's for some parents, man, it makes more sense to like, yo, pops, go work, mom, stay home, and just let's thug it out and figure out what we got to do. But it's genuinely not as expensive as I thought it was going to be, but the economy is only getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Despite what headlines say, like, eggs are still expensive as shit, gas is still expensive as shit. But yeah, man, being a new father, and like, you know, this is a big one, dude, not being connected to the baby at first. That is so, like, nobody warns you for that. At least that happened to me. Some of my homies, they were like, nah, that didn't happen to me. But for me, it was like, okay, my wife was immediately connected to this child. She's growing this child inside of her womb. And I meet this child, and now this child is just crying and keeping me awake. And my whole life just shifted, dude. Now, and like, everything depends on you. And it's just like, kind of like a survival, like, keep this baby alive. And the second one, I didn't have that issue, but my first child, it was like, I didn't connect with my daughter until she was like a month or two old. And I remember when it happened, I was alone with her inside of my living room, and oh my God, bro, like, that's where I learned to love again, having my daughter.
Do you think it was the stress and the pressure and everything that was stopping that, like, disconnection?
No, I think it's such a radical change. Like, from 1 minute, dude, I've lived selfishly for so many years, and like, I wake up when I want to wake up, and I go where it is that I want to go, and like, I don't of course I think about people and the people I love, but like, dude, I get to move on my own. Then out of nowhere, it's like, no, you can't. And your whole life revolves around this child. Now I wouldn't have it any other way. And it gives a whole new definition to a whole new life, right? But in the beginning, it's like, bro, identity crisis. Like, I've gone through identity crisis multiple times inside of my life, and that was one of them. Like, I was like, dude, do I want to be a dad? Like, that a lot of dads don't talk about. Like, do I want to be a dad, man? Like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Then you get into the relationship with your significant other, your wife, hopefully it's your wife, man. And like, her body's changing, so she doesn't feel the same way that she once felt about herself. And then you're inside of a different energy with her, and sex isn't what it used to be. And there's this whole new transition, and you guys got to thug it the fuck out, because then the hormones are going crazy. And then you have this baby that's blocking at all times, bro. Like, you can never get busy because this baby's there. And like, so many changes are happening inside of the household that just like, with a dad, that as a father, it is and shout out to the moms, bro, because holy, my wife, I've fallen more in love with her, seeing her be a mother. She's a superhero, bro. I don't know how she deals with half the that she deals with, and lets me fully submerge in what it is that I pursue. But
Isn't
yeah,
it
man,
crazy how like no one's talking about all of these things, but everyone's experiencing it?
bro, I wish someone like, dude, let me know that I'm not gonna like my baby at a point. Like that we need
So
to
many
know,
people,
bro.
yeah.
Like, give me
Like-
the heads up, bro. This is
Yeah.
gonna be the weird transitional phase
Yeah.
that you have this human that you don't know
Yeah.
moving in.
Yeah. You just got to figure it out. Because like if you knew in the moment, you're like, oh, okay, we're in this chapter. Cool. This
Yeah.
I can accept that we're in this chapter, but there's no manual, there's no book. And I think that's the craziest thing, when like as men, we don't talk about these things as, like in the way that we should, right? Because there's real power and real freedom in speaking about like our true lived experiences and not being ashamed or afraid to talk about these things, which is I'm so grateful that this podcast is happening right now, because I can guarantee that there's multiple men watching this who are going through their own experience of that, and they're like, oh, I feel seen, I feel heard,
That's so important,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
why we
want to
put
stay
this
with
together.
that with vulnerability, because I think that that's so key. I know nowadays, man's mental health is one of the biggest topics out there. Talking about men's mental health and how much men are scared to talk about the things that they go through, because we grew up in this age where if you talk about your feelings, your emotions, you're soft, etc. But recently, I found out that vulnerability is power. I recently went through some tough times myself a couple years ago. And I found a brother, Matt, who I was able to be vulnerable with. And when I'm able to share those experiences with him and he's able to give me his wisdom back, those things really helped me out so much. Back then, if I didn't understand that, I would just keep it all to myself. And I know that you obviously mentor a lot of people. How is it that you're able to help people kind of be vulnerable with you? What's that conversation like? How is it that you create that space for people to be vulnerable with you? Because I know there's a lot of people watching right now and maybe they have the same analogy like, hey, showing my emotions is soft or whatever it is. But in reality, talk about the importance of being vulnerable and how that helps you get through things.
If I may, I remember Lucas coming to the crib for the first time for us to do a session. And dude, I started talking about that I've never spoke to anybody. I don't know where.
He creates this crazy space, right?
Bro, it's so fucking twisted. Even my wife, who like, my wife, bro, she is not like that at all. And she's very to herself and like,
she has to know you for real. And
Manito, she was so open and like just spewing out like about her dad and like things that she has been processing for years. And afterwards I was like, did I say too much? Like,
You can get like a vulnerability hangover.
Yeah, bro.
That's real.
I was like, why did I say all of that right now? What
but
the
that's
fuck?
a skill to like
Dude, it's
create a
incredible.
space for people to.
I would love to
share those
learn that,
things. I would
actually.
love to.
Yeah,
know
I
that,
just go
actually.
first and I tear myself off the pedestal and I be vulnerable, and I also set my intention before coming into any space. Like I stop, I pause, I meditate, I tap in, and it's like I'm here to be of service. So I get into my heart, into a coherent state between my brain and my heart. I regulate my nervous system. We're all co-regulating together. Like our nervous systems are co-regulated. So if I'm dysregulated and I'm all tweaked out and in survival, you're going to feel that, and you might not like, it might be subconscious, but some part of you is going to feel it, and you might know that it's not a safe space because of my energy and my nervous system and the way I'm responding. So I just make sure I'm grounded, I'm regulated, I'm in my heart, which means I'm not judgmental. It means you can share anything with me and I'm not going to judge you, like genuinely, because who am I to judge? I've been through it all. So I'm in that space and I'm real with it. Like I really with people, truly. Like I really love people. I genuinely do.
That's
and
real.
I know that how much people struggle, because I know how much I've struggled and I know how much my family has struggled and all the loved ones that aren't here anymore because they've taken their lives. And a lot of my homies have taken their lives. And it's over things that they didn't talk about. And if they were willing to have a conversation, if they felt safe enough to do that, like you said, then they'd still be here today. But they weren't willing because of that whole stigma, or that it's weak to feel your emotions. It's weak to, express and talk about what you're going through. But that's a distortion. That's not based on truth. That's not based on reality. As community, we heal together. When we come together, we heal together. But you have to be willing to be seen, and you have to be willing to open yourself up to be seen and to be heard. But when you do that, then you don't feel alone anymore. And a lot of people feel alone, and they feel like isolated and separate and stuck in their struggles. But that's because they're not opening up. They're not allowing themselves to, and that's a prison. And if you keep yourself stuck in that prison, then it leads nowhere good. So that way out of that is to just practice small little micro moments of letting people in, like letting people know what you're thinking about, what you're feeling. You don't have to go tell them everything. Tell them whatever you feel comfortable with, but start leaning into that and start practicing it. And the more you do it, the more natural it will become, because you'll see that people receive it and people want to be there to support you, because some of us can feel like it's a burden to share what we're going through with others. And we don't want to let that support in because we're used to doing it all ourselves. And I know what that's like, to do everything myself.
It's a lot, yeah.
It's a lot, but when we come together, we can heal together, So when you understand that and you recognize the power in it and you have a direct experience of that, then you see the wisdom in it. And this is ancient. Cultures came together for millennia to do this, to come together, to heal together. We've just become so separate. Most of us are walking around connected to our devices. We're scrolling heads
All
down.
day.
We're not only disconnected from ourselves, we're disconnected from each other. We're disconnected from the natural world, and we're plugged into a simulation of survival. It's not natural. It's not what God designed us to do and to be, but that's where we find ourselves now. So it's like slowly unplugging from all of that programming and just being real with it.
I think in the same breath though, you gotta be really careful who it is that has your ear.
100%.
Yes.
I'm a strong believer that who has your ear has your heart, and who has your heart has your actions.
Yeah.
And those actions are going to lead to your reality.
You got to be discerning. And
you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, discernment is knowing like who's in your corner, because a lot of people that are around you aren't actually your friends. And you can see that in the way that they respond to your wins. And are they celebrating your wins and the things that you're doing and your posts and the way that you're showing up online or whatever you're doing? Or are they not? Are they holding back from giving you your flowers? Are they holding back from even like putting a heart or commenting on your posts, little things? Do you feel that sense of jealousy? Do you feel that sense of like they're trying to one up you, or they're in competition with you? And there's healthy forms of competition, We love to compete. We love to get things done.
Yeah.
But it's not coming from I'm trying to tear you down and shit on you, and I'm trying to like put you down here so I can like get above you. Like, no. And if people are in those circles, then just realize those people aren't truly your friends, and they're probably not the right people that you want to be opening up to. But when you find people who are safe and you trust them and you know that they've got your back because you can feel that, and then they back it up with evidence, like they prove it to you, then those are the people that you can count on and you can be vulnerable with, and you can keep your circle small. You don't have to have a huge amount of people that are around you that you tell your inner thoughts and feelings to, but it's helpful to have like homies that you can share stuff with and not feel judged and feel supported, because we're all going through, like the human experience is one wild journey. We're all in it. We're all like on this journey together. So yeah, finding that crew is important, but yeah, you do have to be discerning about that. You can't trust everyone because not everyone has your best interests. So.
Absolutely. And what would you say to somebody that has gone through that process where they found that inner circle? Because like we've experienced people that were inside of our inner circle and completely wrecked us, bro, and tried to demolish us.
Literally.
And people that disguise themselves, right? And fortunately, I thank God that I haven't grown a callus on my heart towards other people, and I haven't allowed that to affect. And it's happened so many times. What would you say to somebody that has a callus on their heart? And it's hard for them to find their people. And if you don't let anybody in, then that group is never going to grow.
Yeah, well, it's poison, If you're carrying around resentment or hate or animosity or anything like that, you're carrying that. That's within your system. That's your body holding on to that. So you're the one that's being negatively impacted. They say forgiveness is forgiving the person for yourself. Like it's for you. Forgiveness, so it's being willing to let go of all of that resentment and whatever's there, because ultimately carrying it's just disconnecting you from feeling more love, more joy, and more connected to your own greatness. So I think that's the key, just being willing to process things and let things go. Like if you have been hurt, if you have had people that have disrespected you or take advantage of you in some way, it's like can you be willing to sit with that and accept that that happened, and then process it and let go of any anger or rage or sadness or hurt or whatever's there? Just let it out of your system, because if you're willing to do that, you can set yourself free, and then you create the space to magnetize and attract the right people to you. But if you're walking around with resentment and hate in your heart, then you're not really a vibrational match to let the right people in. So you got to be willing to like process that and let that go.
That's so powerful.
And then you become more magnetic, and then you're not looking, you find your people, right?
It's almost as if they find you at the exact timing too.
Yeah. And that's the dope thing about being truly authentic and truly deeply yourself. You'll repel the people that aren't meant for you, and you'll, attract the people that are for you. So all you got to do is really be your authentic self. And if there's healing to do, if people have hurt you, then that's cool. You can heal. You can let that go, and then just come back to your authenticity, right? Leading from your heart.
You speak about authenticity a lot, bro, and I think that you're a walking poster child of what authenticity is. You wear it on your skin like I do, quite literally.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, 100%. What would you say to somebody that's struggling to be that authentic version of themselves, man? Because it's so hard, bro. Like we're consumed by the likes, we're consumed by the analytics, we're consumed by what we believe people think of us, even though most of the time they're too busy worried about their own to even realize what the going on inside of your life.
100.
How do you get somebody to just boil down to finding who it is that they truly are and unapologetically being that? Because that's got me in more doors than any other gift that I have, man. Just being me, and what you see is what you get.
Sometimes I look around in the circles that I'm in the rooms that I'm in, and I don't even know how I got there. Like I literally blow my own mind and heart wide open. Like I take a moment and I pause and I look, and it's because of authenticity, because people can feel it, So for me, I think one of the biggest things that's helped me is not taking on board all of the praises and all of the amazing things that people have to say to you, and then not taking on board all of the judgment and all the criticism and all the hate. Like walking more connected to yourself and your own soul and what you came here to do ultimately, which is caring less about what others have to say to you, because what others say about you and your vision and what you're here to create is coming through their own filtering, it's coming through their own programming, and they can't understand your vision because it's not their vision. That vision was gifted to you by God. It was placed in your heart and mind for a purpose, right? So you can't expect other people to understand your vision when it's not theirs, especially those same people who won't even back their own vision, won't go after their own dreams. They won't invest in themselves.
That
part.
Like, how can you expect those people to believe in your vision or even see it or even champion you, right? Of course they can't. They can't even champion themselves or back themselves. So it's like understanding that. And then the people that do praise you and, you're doing an amazing job and all of that, it's like, cool, let it in a little bit, but don't let it get to you in a way where it's like taking over you and you get lost in the source, So that, I think, being centered and being grounded and not getting lost in the source and just being really, truly connected to yourself is key. But you have to be willing to be okay with being judged and not being liked. Because at a certain point in time, when you start taking up more space and you start speaking about what you're here to create and you start going out there and taking action on it, you are going to be judged. People are going to have something to say. People are going to have their own opinions. And that's okay because it's coming through their filters and their belief systems. So that's what it is. And then, just know that when you be authentic, you set yourself free. You will start repelling people. And that's a great thing because those people aren't for you. But you'll also start attracting the right people into your life. So I think it's caring less about what people think from a healthy place, not being too egocentric, but it's just like, I don't care if you're going to praise me and say the most amazing things to me. I'm going to keep that neutral and keep it centered. And also all of the hate and all of the doubt and all the criticism, I'm going to keep that here as well, and just walk with faith and walk with belief in yourself, knowing what you came here to do and who you came here to be is a massive one.
That was a very tough pill to swallow inside of music, for sure, because you're exposing yourself to the world.
Yeah.
And everyone can have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
You want to develop thick skin, run ads on your songs. It'll show you what it is that you're made of. Yeah. So I want to ask you a question, and then we're going to bring this to a wrap, my brother. 20 years from now, your future child, in the event that you do want to have kids, your future child is watching this. What do you want them to know about dad?
That's a great question. For me, I'm not having children in this lifetime. I've made a commitment.
You're understudy, somebody that you've genuinely taken underneath your wing, and you've taught all your teachings to, and it's their understudy, somebody generationally. 20 years from now, what do you want them to know about you and the person that they're studying today?
I wouldn't want them to know anything about me, and what I'd want them to really truly know about is what they're capable of, which comes through their spiritual connection to God. And I'd want them to develop that connection to God in their own way, in whatever way resonates with them. And I'd want them to go all in on that. And I'd want, if anything, my life be a testimony to my direct connection to God and how I've been able to move past my own limitations and fears and all of my own negative programming and trauma and the things that I've been through to accomplish something great, something that once upon a time I thought was never possible. And I accomplished something great and I did that. And here's the manual, here's the book, but it's not about me. It's about your spiritual connection to God. And once you read this, it's a way for you to create that space to start deepening your connection. And it's knowing that it's always there, but you do have to create space for it like any other practice. So I think that's what it would be. It would be like a book, or it would be whatever it would be, but it would be around creating the space to connect with God and allow God to move through every cell in your body to unlock greatness, whatever greatness means to you, your version of greatness, so you can accomplish that. Just to be a permission slip for others to do the same. Because as we liberate ourselves, we also give others permission to do the same.
That is
Lukis,
so powerful.
My brother, you are somebody that is the definition of planting seeds for trees that they do not intend to use for shade. And I know that your teachings are going to be passed down from generation to generation. If you are hearing about Lukis for the very first time, follow this man on social media.
Please do.
Follow his company. Go out to a workshop, buy the online programs that he offers, and dive. But get ready to dive deep. Lukis Mac, my brother, thank you so much for being here with us on A Space of Solace.
Thank you, bro. That was amazing. I'm ready to rewatch it and take some notes because there was so much wisdom you dropped for us, man. Thank you for real.
That was fun.
God bless you, man,
Love
for
that.
real.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I just wanna be in the zone.